I like it really.
Waiting to start the live stream and then start the Zoom with our guest from UCLA.
Should be.
Okay.
Okay,
Going here.
excellent.
I like it really.
Oh, no, there, that's great. Then start the Zoom with our guest from UCLA.
Should be.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Yes, live streams like that.
Yeah,
In case somebody drops
all
a
good?
bomb or something.
Okay, great. All right, we are ready to begin. So, we do a live, no, we're just here. Okay.
Good, yeah.
Welcome, 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 everybody, to Centro. This evening, we are so super excited for our panel discussion tonight, and we are especially excited that this is the last of a three series installment of a year-long speaker series that I wanted to say just a few words about. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Margaret Senna. I work here as Associate Director of Graduate Student Engagement. I am joined by my fantastic colleagues, our amazing Elvira Prieto, erstwhile hunger striker, and just, you know, the boss of Centro, has been an RF and done just such amazing things as our wonderful director. I'm also joined here by our fabulous assistant director, Jacob Velasquez. And yay, and last but not least, my other professional colleague, Sandra Galeas, who is in charge of our first year transition programs and is just making all kinds of great things happen for our Frosh and our transfer students. So thank you, Sandra. And it wouldn't be Centro if we weren't joined by the really kind of work that powers our center every single day, our amazing student staff members. Well, we have so many of them here, and we really couldn't do what we do without them. They create the flyers, they create the publicity, they go get the food, they create the videos, they do everything. And they are just truly amazing and just wonderful young people and wonderful leaders who we feel very certain will take their community with them when they go out into the world. So we're really grateful to these young leaders because without them, we would all be nothing. So thank you. A few words about the speaker series. The speaker series was something that we kind of created this year. Just because we were noticing in our communities here at Stanford and then within Latina communities more broadly speaking, we were noticing that there were lots of divisions between generations. We sort of talked about this and thought, you know, this is quite frankly for a minoritized community, we just don't really have the luxury of being divided. And so we thought it really important to start a prompt discussions between different generations of Stanford Latine alumni. And so the vision of this initiative was really, how could we collect a bunch of really wonderful Latine alumni who are doing great things, who can talk a little bit about the perspective from their generation, and then be in conversation with other generations. So we kicked off this series in fall with a political discussion. That was wonderful. We had representatives from Gen X, Gen Z, and millennials. And then we followed that up with a great conversation on capital investment and Latina empowerment in the winter. This is our final series topic for the year. And this one, of course, as most of you know, who've registered for the event, this focuses on Latina representation in TV and film. And we are delighted. We've got a superstar panel for you tonight. We're so excited to welcome everybody here and have them here. But before I make any other remarks, I wanted to, welcome again our folks who are joining us via Zoom. We also have a YouTube audience on our Centro Visión channel. It's our Centro YouTube channel. And then also, last but not least, we have a Zoom audience. We are going to try to coordinate all of them together as we go into the question and answer section of the format tonight. But before that, I really wanted to introduce you to our fantastic hosts. Each of our generaciones programs has really been kind of powered by the work and the skill of a fantastic student staff moderator. When we thought about who we could possibly get to host tonight's discussion on TV and film, we didn't have to think very hard because we have somebody on our staff who is not only an excellent student and who is majoring in CSRE, but we also have a resident film buff who brings all of the staff together every Friday afternoon after our staff meeting and puts on a film and then proceeds to like critique it with all of the staff and all of the staff time. So when we thought, who can we get to moderate this discussion, we knew Jacqueline Martinez from the great class of 2027 was exactly the person. So I'd like to say a few words about our dear beloved Jackie. Jackie is originally from San Diego, California, and is majoring in CSRE and minoring in human rights. She serves on our student staff team and is a member of the cultural programming team here at El Centro Chicano y Latino. And she is just fantastic, a real leader, a real visionary, and a true thinker and thought leader. So we're so proud of Jackie. Can we all get a little round of applause? Taking it off Jackie, because she can run the rest of the show. I don't need to be here.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's event. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be your moderator. If you guys haven't gotten any food, go ahead. It's in that room. Also, Yelp me 5 stars so I can be a moderator for our next event. That's actually my true calling. So I'm giving you 5 stars. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But thank you so much for being here today. Before we begin, though, we wanted to start with a few clips from our amazing panelists. So if Jacob can cue that, please indulge with us in a short video, and then we'll get started on those questions.
Thank you.
Let's see what they got, Nick.
The way it is too, I'm tired of being asked the question of, so tell us the state of Latinos in entertainment today, because I'm answering the same questions that I've been answering from the beginning of my career, and not much has changed. There is a bit more visibility, but have I been told several times, change your name? Yes. Have I been told, well, you can't play that part because that's the lead, and they're not gonna have a Latino guy as the lead. You know, Gonzalez isn't gonna be up on the marquee, it's not gonna be on the poster. What happened this time? Sort of bleeding somewhere. On a capsule endoscopy to check the entire length of the valve for bleeding and leaks and give me a complete coagulation and metabolic profile. I'm extra.
Nothing was touching. Short film, short doc, about a journey that I took along the border to try to find the spot where a young Salvadoran father and his daughter drowned in the Rio Grande.
We are not ending with that soup. You can come to the dinner or not. I couldn't avoid it if I tried. We live in the same house.
You're going to lose the restaurant grandma unless you happen to have $500,000 somewhere.
When people ask us like, well, how is change gonna happen? Or where do you think change can take place? And a lot of it is just really diversifying those executives, like the executive ranks, and, finding ways to make sure that you are, bringing up minorities, ethnic minorities through, the corporate ladder pretty much of studios and networks.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to Nanette, who is on our student staff here at Central, for putting that together for us. And obviously now we've got a visual view, but I want to kind of delve in deeper. So I'm going to introduce our panelists, starting off with Alma Martinez. Dr. Martinez is an award-winning actor, theater director, producer, and author. She performed on Broadway, off-Broadway, in theaters across the country, and on Mexican and European stages. In 2023, the Connecticut Critics Circle awarded her Best Actress in a Drama for her performance in Mojada, a Medea in Los Angeles at Yale Rep. TV credits include Gentefied, Bosch, Legacy, SWAT, Undone, The Bridge, and Corridos, Tales of Passion and Revolution. Film credits include A Little Family Drama, Clemency, Transpecos, Zoot Suit, and born in East LA. She was inducted into the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in 2013 and the Television Academy in 1992. A UCSC Emerita professor, Alma is a former Dartmouth College Cesar Chavez Dissertation Fellow and Fulbright Scholar. Her research, yes, clap it up, clap it up. Yes. Her research, the influence and insights of Chicano and Latin American theater and performance, has been published by Routledge Press, Smithsonian Press, Southern Illinois University Press, and Gato Negro Ediciones. Born in Coahuila, Mexico, she's a proud immigrant and first generation. She holds an MFA from USC and earned her PhD in 2006, in dramatic criticism and directing in the Department of Drama within the School of Humanities and Sciences, the first Latina admitted in the department's 50-year history. And to bring it on home, she was a graduate scholar in residence here at El Centro Chicano y Latino. Welcome back. It's so lucky to have you. Moving on to Nicholas Gonzalez. Nicholas Gonzalez was born in San Antonio, Texas. Any Texans in here? Yeah. Okay. And is an actor, writer, and producer. He came to Stanford University in 1994, where he pursued a degree in English. He previously played the exacting Dr. Neil Melendez on ABC's The Good Doctor, and was a young star of the first Latino primetime series, Resurrection Boulevard. Nicolas has starred in over 100 credits on, I want to say, my personal favorite TV series as well, Modern Family, Pretty Little Liars, Adios Versus Murder, That 70s Show, Narcos Watch, The OC, Law and Order SVU, and Nicolas can currently be seen in the NBC series La Brea. On Zoom, we have the wonderful Ana Cristina Ramon. Dr. Ramon, yes. Yes. Dr. Ramon is a social psychologist who has worked on social justice issues related to equity and access in higher education and in the entertainment industry for 2 decades. Dr. Ana Cristina Ramon is the inaugural director of the Entertainment and Media Research Initiative at UCLA, an initiative housed in the Institute of Research on Labor and Employment, which again is a unit of the UCLA Division of Social Sciences. As the founding director, Dr. Ramon manages the research initiative, which produces the UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report and additional research projects on entertainment and media. Since October 2022, she has been the lead author for EMRI's biannual UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report, along with other publications related to this research. She also co-edited a book with Dr. Darnell Hunt titled Black Los Angeles, American Dreams and Racial Realities. Other notable distinctions are Dr. Ramon's position as the inaugural Latino Film Institute Scholar, along with her BA in Psychology from Stanford University, and MA and PhD in Social Psychology from the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. And last but not least, we have John Ayon Alonso, who is a mestizo filmmaker from Los Angeles. Based in Oakland, he holds a BA in cinema from SF State and an MFA in documentary from Stanford. His work has earned him recognition and support from Francis and Roman Coppola, the Annenberg Foundation, SF Film, New Filmmakers LA, Points North Institute, IDA, Full Frame, Avenida TV Plus, and the Sundance Edit Lab. Ayon's films explore the mestizaje/Latine American experience with a critical focus on broken indigenous kinship systems, internalized racism, cultural xenophobia, Ulysses syndrome, and generational trauma. He is currently serving as an assistant professor of film and digital media at the University of California at Santa Cruz. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, you guys, and thank you to Dr. Ramon, who is on Zoom. So I kind of just wanted to format the way that we're going to go about this talk. We're going to begin with a series of questions for each of our panelists, and that will take up the first 45 minutes to an hour of our talk. And then if you guys have any burning questions for our panelists, you guys will have the opportunity to do so. Make sure to just think them up, keep them in your pocket, and we will allocate time for those questions. That also applies to people on Zoom. If you have questions, please just put them in the chat and we will allocate time to answer those. All right. So this first question I'm going to be asking you guys has to do with your identity and career development or choosing your career. So for Alma, your first one, your career has spanned decades and has brought to life characters like Lupe and Zutsu and Lupe and Hensepai. Why did you decide to become an actor? And how is your work in acting or teaching shaped by your identity as a Latina?
Oh, boy.
Big questions, yes.
Let's see, I'm trying to keep it concise. I was born in Monclova, Coahuila, Mexico. Immigrated when I was 3 months old. So I was raised in a Mexican household. Like my brother, who's a year younger, could go to all the proms, could go to the senior party. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go because I was a woman. Yeah. So what I felt at home was just remember, because I'm looking at it as a young woman, like American culture, and I want to be a part of it. But I go home and soy la hija, I have to wash dishes for 7 people, every night. It was my job as a woman for 7 people, starting in the 6th grade, 5th grade. So when I went into acting, I was trying everything. I was incredibly shy when I was very young, just really shy, really. And so I kind of started to blossom when I was in middle school, ran for, an office, but I went to high school, it's like bam. Class vice president, I got into drill team, Spanish club, home ec, the tennis team, drilled, I did everything. But then I found theater. So what happened, the reason I attached to theater, first of all, the professor, one professor, can make the difference. Who encourages you, he encouraged me, but what happened was, for once, I was able to express what I was feeling, even though the words weren't mine, they were by Anglo writers. But for the first time, I felt I could express what I felt publicly in front of people. So I felt more myself on a stage than I had ever felt before. Ya no era la hija buena. I wasn't the A student, I was an A student, and education has been very important to me, and I excelled. So what happened though, I lost my identity. I excelled because I forgot all my Latinidad. Does that make sense? So the same time I excelled, I was going backwards because I was becoming less Latina. And I didn't discover that till later. So that's why I went to acting. Even now, I love acting. Hollywood, the credits, trust me, it's good on paper, but I just love it. It's always going to be my soul place, my meditative space, my wellness place is going to be acting. And I'm going to be doing a workshop. I do them all the time. Going to Croatia to do a workshop. I'll always be in workshops and acting classes. That's my place.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful story. Going on to Nicholas. You began your film career as part of the ensemble cast for the first all-Latino drama on TV and have continued to play a wide array of characters in TV and film. Why did you decide to become an actor? And how is your work in acting shaped by your identity as a Latino?
Kind of emotional for me. Sorry. I just had been very fortunate in my career and just really happy with my life and family right now. And a lot of that is because of this woman. That's why it's just listening to you say all this stuff. It's just hard for me to imagine if you hadn't done all of that. You wouldn't have been there that day. For you guys that don't know the story, sorry, when I didn't discover acting until Stanford, my father is a physician. He was in the military. I grew up as an army brat. We didn't have a lot of money growing up or anything. Parents divorced, and I was a latchkey kid, and TV was my babysitter. It was. I saw things I probably shouldn't have seen at a young age, but I was exposed to comedy and all of its different forms and used to stay up late watching all that. So for me, it was something that I just never knew you could do it. I mean, now for you guys, there's a headshot photographer in every little city in America, and all across the world now, everything is, now when people audition, it's all over Zoom. So it wasn't something I had ever thought. And maybe some of you can also identify that as my Stanford career was going on and I started in econ and I was like, wow, that's really hard. And that's not what I love. And there was another person who had a big effect on me, and he said, study what you love. This is your opportunity, like college, this is your opportunity to really So I decided to change to English, and that was the first thing of me just kind of following what I love, and I always loved reading and characters, getting into that, and that was kind of an entryway to acting, but comedy and improv was something that I was a fan of in San Antonio, and there was one class here. And it was taught by Patricia Ryan, who was an absolute legend in improv and theater, who I didn't even know at the time, but what the opportunity that I was given, like at Stanford, right? You guys have amazing instructors, and like I remember it was who was head of economics when I was here, John. He led the Japan trade talks with like Reagan, and he's like a huge, but he was teaching Econ 1. So in the same sense, Patricia Ryan was there, and I really loved improv. And I went to abroad to Oxford for a couple terms and backpacked around Europe. I was a cross-country track runner here too, I forgot to mention. Stopped after my sophomore year because I wanted to see the world. We had to practice all day long, every day, year round. So I finally broke free of that. That was a big part of my life. And I think that was probably that unmooring that really had me open to what the world was offering at the time. And when you're in a place like this, right? They say it's like turning on a fire hose, and offering you a drink. That's all the opportunity here. And I think it was like in that particular place in time, and I just did something as a hobby. I got into more acting classes because they had improv exercises in the course curriculum. So that was literally what led me into the class. I just wanted to do more of that. And I was here with Sterling Kelby Brown, a lot of you may know too. Fred Savage, Danny Pintaro, some of these names you guys want to sort of like from the 80s. But well, I mean, when they were child actors when they started, and I did a play. I was approached to do a play because this is, when I talk about representation, there was a graduate student who was looking for, she wanted to do her graduate project and she needed a Latino acting student. And here was this guy who was in like one class, and I don't remember a lot. We were just talking like, I don't remember a lot when I was here, or a lot of specific things, but I can still see it in my head. I remember her coming to the door and them talking and pointing and then them calling me over. It's like you're in high school or something. And she took me out there and said, "Would you read this?" And it was a 15-minute monologue. And I read it to her, and she's like, "Would you like to do this?" And I just remember that moment, saying no. And this is complete opposite of anything I would ever be comfortable with. Never done theater. And I said yes. Everything changed. And the first performance, she was in the audience, and she came to my dressing room afterwards and said, "We need more young Latinos like you," and literally, and just took my hand and took me straight to the theater scene in San Francisco. I was suddenly having dinners with playwrights, and your magical world opened up to me. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was headed. And it's been an absolute gift.
That was beautiful. I love seeing the connections, and thank you so much for being vulnerable with us.
Well, you do.
A follow-up question, I heard you use the word representation, and obviously that is the theme of our entire talk tonight. So if I can ask you.
You gotta know, I think about it every time.
A follow-up question I have for you is, what does representation mean to you? And do you think that there's a specific perspective that your generation can share with the younger generation about representation?
I'm sorry, what's the question directed?
That one's for Nick.
Okay.
Okay, excuse me.
Gosh, for me, I don't know what it's like for you guys, but for me growing up, there wasn't a lot of representations on TV, right? But at the same time, I feel like it's a little bit like that today. That was like, I'm not gonna say we don't care, right? We want that, need it, we want our stories and need it. But what I mean is like, we're just so drawn to the human experience, right? And it can be something that's completely foreign to what we've experienced ourselves, but we see the universality in it, right? The struggle, the mean, the familiar, I was gonna say, and then it became familia. But family, what that and how different cultures regard it. So it was something that I always felt that I was seeing, because as a human, but the stories that I knew and the people and things, it was very rare to see it. And it means a lot. It validates so much of that I think for a lot of people that I'm here. I'm here, I exist. I went through this, whether it's something harrowing or whether it's even just the simple things we go through daily, you know, to be a part of that, and to be recognized, I think is a huge thing for us. But to me, it was I guess I latched on to a lot of those characters, but I was just so I was into all of it at the time, you know, and I think that maybe that was just the resort. I can't even imagine what it would be like growing up with all this now. I mean, there's just so much. I feel that I tend to look a little more at like how far we've come. You know, you heard me in that thing before about representation. I feel like we're answering a lot of the same questions since I first started the business, but a lot has changed, you know. Deep down, do some of the long, you know, held racial convictions that people haven't, you know, and it's still difficult with certain things, you know. Would it have been better if I changed my name? Possible. But I feel like there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot of opportunity. It's a matter of us now taking it and leaving the mainstream and the way we're allowed to be represented. Or we want to show us. And just now we have our own, you know, we have filmmakers that are capable, we have teachers that are bringing up the next. And so that's what's so important.
Going on to John. You're a millennial filmmaker and teacher who has brought news stories about the humanity of migrants, specifically migrants from El Salvador, which has offered such humanizing view of a community that has been so dehumanized. Why did you decide to become a filmmaker? And how is your work in filmmaking and teaching shaped by your identity as a?
Yeah, I mean, I think the identity part of that response, I'm half Salvadoran, half Mexican. Thank you. Which we find might be cousin.
Yeah.
But like that already is like a sense, like an identity crisis of sorts. And then being, you know, born on this side of the border to undocumented parents at the time, there's a ni de aquí ni de allá already happening, right? So like I grew up with this like real crazy like crisis of identity because I wasn't Mexican, I wasn't Salvadoran, I wasn't American, and I wasn't any of those other countries. So like and that's how we all kind of grew up. So the sense of identity was something that I had to like learn, you know, others, we all have to figure it out in our teens and our 20s, like who am I? And you know, in terms of like deciding to be a filmmaker is a really hard question for me to answer because I think I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was a kid. I had a very similar, I was watching TV that I probably shouldn't have been watching, watching movies. But the crazy thing about it was for me was that my dad worked graveyard shifts. And so he would wake up after a nap from like 8 to like 11 when it was time for him to go. And at that point, around the 9 o'clock zone when we're supposed to be in bed, I would just come downstairs and watch films with him while he was waiting for the clock to start. And so like my first teacher for film was my dad. Like I was watching like the Época de Oro films, you know, like that's you know, Ismael Rodriguez films, Pedro Infante, Cantinflas, you know, Macario, like all these films. He was my first teacher. Like this is like cinema. And he also was the one teaching me about like to watch like Michael Mann films and like all these other like, you know, great cinema films. And so I think that was the first time where I was like, I want to do this, like I want to make movies. And then, you know, fast forward through like everything that middle school and high school and young adulthood does to crush all your dreams. Like I didn't get to do it, right? So like I was a musician, I was in a punk band for like 10 years, I was a career bartender for a minute, you know, I was a teacher randomly for a little bit. And my partner went to Stanford for the grad education program, graduated it, and randomly on like a Tuesday, it was like, would you ever go back to school? And this is somebody who almost flunked out of high school. And I was like, maybe, yeah, that'd be cool for like my career. Maybe I should pick something. And so she asked me like what I would do if I could study anything. And I'm 30 at this point. And I said, without thinking, I just said film. Like I wanted to study film. I've always wanted to study film. And so I went to City College in San Francisco, SF State. For the first time in my life, I was like an A student. I was on the honor, like I was on the dean's list. I was on the honor roll. I was like, what happened? And I think it was really just I was ready. You know, some people were late bloomers. And so yeah, and then I ended up working in the industry for a minute, and then came to Stanford after one of my films did pretty well. The one that won the Coppola Award at Sundance, and that was my undergrad thesis. So I was like, okay, I want to try to get a job in the industry. The industry kind of like chewed me up and spat me out. And then I was like, maybe I should go back to school. So I went to grad school and I came here. That's where I met everyone at El Centro. I made a film here called Manzanal that did pretty well. And it was because of El Centro that I could do that film, because I met people here. And we all had like a casting call. And yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. Deciding to be a filmmaker was like later in life, I think, you know. But yeah, thanks for asking that. I guess.
Beautiful. It sounds like you have such a nuanced and rich experience with the film industry and, you know, like that passion. So kind of on a similar note to the question that I asked Nicholas, is there anything that you would like to share for generations that have come either before or after about the role of Latinas in film as a filmmaker yourself?
I mean, I think that the best thing that I remember learning kind of too late in life, I wish I would have learned it earlier, was how valuable it is to have a generation before you or a few generations before you to teach you like what you need to know, to help you, to open those doors for you, to let you in, to say, hey, like it was harder for me. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be vindictive and make it harder for you. I'm going to open that door and I'm going to like let you in. And that happened to me. That happened at an center. That happened wherever I would go. And on top of that, as a professor now, like it's really important, I think, to remember how much we have to learn from like young people who are coming up, and open up our minds to like these new ideas and new concepts and new ways of seeing gender, new ways of seeing, you know, politics, new ways of seeing all these things. I think we forget that like through us flows like ancestral like unity, right? And so I wish that I would have known that earlier. I've learned it now, but yeah, I wish that's probably what I would say on generational.
Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to Dr. Ramon, who's on Zoom. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay. So, Dr. Ramon, you have co-authored the Hollywood Diversity Report series since 2014. Your reports have taught us so much, but the findings are pretty disappointing. In the 2025 report, your team found that only 3.6% of actors were Latina in theatrical film, and 2.1% of all writers were Latina. Do you think there's a generational problem? Is it getting better with more millennials and Gen Z actors, writers, or producers? What are your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to first say thank you for having me on this panel and for accommodating me that I couldn't travel to the campus today. And so I feel bad that I couldn't hang out with these amazing panelists and everyone else at El Centro. So I appreciate that. But I just wanted to then talk about the research that we've been doing. As you mentioned, our Hollywood Diversity Report has been coming out since 2014, and we've been looking at racial, ethnic representation and gender representation since we started. We added disability representation the past few years because there was more data available. But basically, when you look at the years that we have studied, we started in 2011 for film, and we also have a separate TV analysis. But in just focused on film, since you mentioned our theatrical report that came out, the numbers have been, as like the other panelists have mentioned, even from 2011, they've just been really bad for Latinx actors, for directors and writers, and there was some increases, but at almost 20% of the US population, it's just obviously extremely disappointing to see the numbers, especially for actors, only go from when we first started around 2% to the high of 7% in films that came out in 2023. In 2024, it was a downturn for all Black, Indigenous, and people of color. But it was very much like a big downturn for Latinx representation in terms of film roles. The difficulty has always been, though, behind the scenes, in terms of having directors and writers that obviously are the ones that shape and create these stories that we see on screen. And those numbers have always been just extremely low, especially in comparison to the population share that we hold. And so that's something that's obviously not like doesn't make you feel good. But the one thing that I do see is that there are changes, and I'm sure Nick can talk more about that, like what he's seen. But what I think was the case in the past, where there was like a competition to have, there was only one, there could only be one Latinx person in a cast, basically. I think that now there's like at least more opportunities in terms of younger people also just figuring out that they can work together instead of trying to compete just for one job. And so I do see that from like writers and creatives kind of working together as and really expanding that network and really trying to make sure that they are the ones that are creating the rules for themselves. And so obviously there's a long way to go because the numbers show that. But what we study is we study the top 200 movies at the global box office. And then we focus our analysis on the English language films out of that top 200. So we're looking at the most successful films at the box office. And obviously, for the theatrical business, it's been really impacted. There aren't as many of these like smaller films that get to make it. Interestingly enough, though, in 2024, there was a lot more independent films because of the fact that there wasn't as many big blockbusters being released. And so there's slightly an opening there, right? And so I think Hollywood is kind of understanding that independent films are very important, and will be important for sustaining, the industry. And so that's where usually you find BIPOC creatives really, shine, because then they are creating those films. And so I do see like that in terms of a generational change. The one thing also in our research, what we focus on that kind of separates us from other research that's done is we've always looked at, like I said, box office, but we've always looked at like who is buying the tickets, who is watching the shows. And so we connect the audience to how important that is in terms of the bottom line. So one key thing to know is that in the past, you would hear executives say, oh, Latinx audiences will go to the movies regardless. They will see whatever we show them. We don't have to do anything to appeal to them necessarily because we can just take them for granted, basically. And so, they might not say that direct, but that's pretty much what the message was for many, many decades, years, right? And so what you can see is in 2024, the box office, because like I said, it was like a pretty different year. But if you wanted to do an experiment on what happens when Hollywood pulls back on racial and ethnic diversity on screen, you can find it in 2024 because in the domestic box office total, it was 3.3% to about 3.8%, depending on whose source you're tracking. But it was a definite drop in domestic box office from 2023. So 2024, with the fact that there was more big films with more all-white casts and with less, racial, ethnic, diverse representation on screen, Hollywood didn't make as much money at the box office in the US. And so that is, I think a huge like red flag, right, for them in thinking like, well, how are we going to maintain the theatrical business? And by rolling back on racial ethnic diversity, that's not going to help you make any money, right? And so, so what's important is that when you look at particularly our audience, the Latinx audience, then we are also becoming more aware of like our power. And I think understanding that we don't have to just go see any movie, right? And so we can stay at home. And so it's the idea of taking for granted BIPOC audiences, I think, is something that it has passed because of the fact that in 2024 you could clearly see that like movies like The Fall Guy didn't they were like formulaic films that should have been a big hit weren't a big hit because audiences need something that they find really connects to them. And then the first big hit of 2024 was the Bad Boys sequel that really did do well, and that was driven by Black and Latinx audiences. And so I think that Hollywood now has like maybe hopefully will see this. I mean, I'm not sure if they will. We've been doing this research for very long and talking to a lot of executives, but I think that the trend lines are there in terms of what needs to be done in order for them to be sustainable and to be profitable. And it's appealing. And the important thing is that they have to appeal to our audience, our Latinx audience, and other BIPOC audiences.
Thank you so much. I think that really kind of brings us to our next point, talking about, I guess, broader perceptions of Latinas in the industry. So we're going to be going into our second set of questions that kind of speak a little bit about roles, representation, specifically also stereotypes in the film industry. So I'll start with Alma, and then, well, this question is for Alma and Nicholas, but we'll start with Alma responding. What are some of the Latina archetypes that you have been asked to play, have come into contact with, or are we reproducing in your work in the media? For example, specific, I guess, historical stereotypes such as the Latino lover, the bandit, the criminal, or a laborer type of stereotype. And how have you managed those calls?
Oh my gosh, perfect. Now remember, I'm 72. My first film was Zoot Suit 1980, but my first feature film was Barbarossa Zoot Suit we shot in 1981. I did my first film Barbarossa in 1980. And before, let me preface this. I do for many years to support myself while at grad school. I got an agent and I was doing university lectures, and I called it Wetbacks, Maids, and Bandidos, the evolution of the Latino stereotype in film. So I go all the way back to Edison and Triptychs when they got Latinos for Wild Bill Hickok, Latinos doing the rope and pistoleros. And so I do a whole thing. And so this is like right up my alley. So before I get into the bigger picture, I have to tell you my first film. I'll try to make it as quick as I can. I was cast in Fred Skepsi's first film, Barbarossa. Willie Nelson's daughter, Isela Vega, was my mother, and Gary Busey and Willie Nelson were like, road buddies. It was a cowboy flick. And so we shot in the middle of Rio Grande, the big national park. They built a set out there, cabins. It was like no roads, dirt roads, cabins. And we had a little place, like a little hotel and a laundromat and a little store for campers. It was just way in the middle of nowhere. Well, I started getting sexually harassed. I was, 25? My first film. And it's the kind of thing where like, you're looked at, like literally, ladies, like a piece of meat. And you just, it goes right through you and it's un asco. Oh my God, it's like you feel it. You just feel it. Well, the producer, a star, he says, when do we have to go study our lines? And I go, okay, yeah, it's a big scene. He goes, my driver will pick you up and take you to my cabin tonight. And I said, and I said this, I could please do this in the afternoon. He goes, well, no, I work. It'll be at night. So I remember going back to the hotel we were at, and there was a knock at the door, and I didn't answer it. I didn't want to go because I had been. And so the next day he goes, where were you? My driver goes, I do not feel comfortable going. He goes, are you afraid of me? And I go, yeah, I am. I said, yeah, I was honest, not like sarcastic. Oh, yeah. Oh, come on. We have to study the scene. Producer, star, big movie. They drive me to the cabin. We get to his cabin, and sitting in the little living room are the head of sound, editor. They're smoking joints, playing a guitar, and the guy says, oh, come on, Mama, let's go study in the bedroom. I go, okay. And that they all get up and they all leave together without saying goodbye, without, okay, I see some faces, the feeling, ¿verdad? ¿Qué creen que va a pasar? And I was feeling it too. So it's twin beds, right? He sits there, I sit here, I have my script, and I'm like, okay, let's practice the scene. He pulls out a guitar and he starts playing, and I go, what are you doing? I go, well, in my last film, I fell in love. I go, well, that's great. Okay. So I go, can we please study the scene? He goes, and she was a Latina. And I said, no. Okay, that's great. And I started, and I go, and he just kept playing, and I go, and remember, I've never been on a film. So hija buena. I was never pushed this far in my life, ever. He says, I go, I don't know what you're doing. I'm here to rehearse. He picks up, he puts on, he says, you Mexican women are all the same. And I went, now, what does that mean? I don't know. What is the same? But it's something. He's about 6 feet. And I'm like 5'2". I get up, automatic. I follow him. I turn him around. I grab him by the shirt and I shove him against the wall. And I said, I swear, all this stuff came out. No, I did. Sure, in the star. And I walked out of the cabin and I started walking to base camp. The moon, no streets, no light. Base camp was about 2 miles away. And I'm walking, I'm going, he goes, oh, I'm gonna come back. No way. And so, like, he starts, this car comes up and he turns on the, he goes, Alma, get in the car. No, I'm sorry. Because he knew if something happened to me, because I have a large role in the film, a big scene. No, come, Alma, please. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Next day, we do the scene. He said, I'm really sorry. He goes, can I invite you to a cup of coffee? I'm really sorry. You can tell, right? Now it's sincere. I go, yes. Well, we shot till 2 in the morning, 3. I jumped on a private plane, went to whatever Del Rio, El Paso, 103 fever on the plane. And I was like sick as a dog for like a week. And that's how much it disturbed me. That was my first feature film. That was it. I shoved the producer in the star against the wall because he called me one of those Latin Mexicans. So is it better? Oh, yeah. It's a lot better. When you call SAG after, the first thing hello, this is SAG after. If this is an emergency on the set, please dial this number 24/7. We didn't have that. I didn't tell anybody for 10 years. That's the Me Too movement. None of us told anybody anything. What purpose? We wanted to work in the industry. We didn't get a reputation. No one was going to protect me. And it happened at different points in my career, the same thing. But what happened was with that experience, I knew how to de-escalate. I had a meeting with a producer once, a couple of years later. I go, hey, I have an idea for it. He goes, yeah, let's go have lunch. In the middle of the meeting, he goes, let's forget this. Let's go F. He just said, let's go F. In the middle of lunch, public place. What do you do? I wasn't going to throw water in his face. I said, and I made a joke and we ended up laughing. Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't want to go to bed with you. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. So I've learned to de-escalate because there was no one to watch your back. No one had your back. So I've learned to de-escalate. Now, many years later, that period of my life where I was a young ingenue, ya pasó. But the point is what I learned and what I was able to pass on and to help other people. I did in academia too. I had a lot of stuff like that, not like that, but a lot of discrimination and in academia as a first Latina. I didn't know when I was a STEM, I didn't know I was gonna be the first Latina. I didn't. I just knew education and I love theater. And so when I got into these theater departments, they're mostly white and they're not diverse. So I went up against a lot of stuff, but that prepared me. So things have gotten better. Now I know who to call, who to talk to. And now young actors and professors call me. I'm like central, like, because I share this and Alma's been through it, talk to Alma. So yes, it's gotten a lot better and it was really hard. And now we're able to share that with the next generation. And I'm gonna stop there.
Oh.
Powerful story, and honestly, it's just so inspiring to see that you were able to reclaim power in
Yeah.
such, I guess, restrictive and oppressive spaces. It's very inspiring to see.
What's really interesting, I think, too, is your sharing of the story has changed in what you probably feel like you can share and have to share. Because I heard that a long time ago, and it was a much more kind of, because you chose to make it a funnier kind of thing. And I'm feeling a very different way, like
Yeah.
hearing you really talk about it.
I used to laugh it off, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Even
was,
then,
yeah, I did. I remember once I was in a bar 10 years later.
you know?
Yeah,
So strong.
absolutely. I went into a bar, was 10 years later, there were some women there, and they go, "You were on Barbarossa?" I go, "Yeah," 10, 15 years ago. They go, "Did you have problems with Gary Busey?" I go, "Yeah." Oops.
We don't know if we did that problem.
My point is, to everybody, but the women weren't talking to each other. See what I mean? The women weren't talking, everybody was quiet. And so the point being, thank you for that, because it was a joke for a long time.
Yeah.
And then after the Me Too movement, the serious part of it, because I knew other women were doing it, then I said, I've got to tell it straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad for me, but thank you for reminding me of it. Thanks.
And then just a follow-up, I'm hearing this, I guess, theme of silence. Right now, that there's this argument in terms of Latina representation. Is it a thing that we should stay silent and just be putting Latina bodies on the screen in order to propel our communities forward and make sure that we are represented? Or should we have some selectivity on the types of roles that we should take on, or the types of films that we should embark on if we are filmmakers?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, it's all your personal choice. It's all your personal choice. There's nothing wrong with being cast as a maid, as a laborer. I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with it. It's about the representation, the writing, making them whole human beings. And a lot of people are doing that now. And if they're not, then you make your suggestions. You say, do you decide? Can I bring some humanity to this? Am I gonna have the opportunity? If it's a Latino director asking you to do it, that's a whole different thing. Than someone who gives you two lines and says, teléfono, señor. Señor, tomes el teléfono. There's a, big difference. I've done those too, as you can tell. So my point is, a lot of this, that's the decision you have to make. And there's a lot of people. Do you guys know who Stephen Fetchit is? Stephen Fetchit? African American in a lot of movies in the 30s and 40s, African American, did a lot of funny roles. And he played sort of the house slave. Yes, sir, no, ma'am. And they go, how can you play those roles? You're bringing down the community. He goes, I would rather go through the front gate of Paramount Studios than through the back. So you see what I mean? You've got to decide on your own. And what the university is good for is because it's teaching you critical thinking, how to make informed decisions. What happened before that's making you feel like you're unsure, should I or not? It's because you're developing critical thinking skills and you're learning history. So that's why you're here, and that's why you're going to be amazing and fabulous in everything you do. And you're going to make the right decision for you and your families. I have no doubt.
Thank you. Moving on to Nicholas, kind of along the lines of the same question, what are some of the Latina archetypes that you have come into contact with being an actor? And again, what do you think about this argument about representation?
I mean, I when I moved to LA, I moved to LA to do theater, like an idiot. I didn't know anything. She tried to set me up well. But when I arrived to LA, it was Living La Vida Loca was the big song, and everybody wanted Latino, and the more, passable you were, probably. So there's different opportunities open to all of us, you know, so when you talk about representation, judging people about what roles they take or don't, not everybody, you know, and during every generation, all these decades that you know, Alma's been working, I'm coming up on 30 soon. Not always have the opportunity to play a character like Dr. Melendez, you know, and yet there are stories in all of those different characters, whether, you know, laborers or cartel boss and all the like things that are open to us now. But it is a big thing about making it a three-dimensional character. Like, how am I gonna, as a person, and am I gonna be able to delve into that, or am I just the big boogeyman who's this exotic, different, you know, and wow, they're crazy, they'll pack each other up, and you know, all the stories that are coming out from the border, and so this is what we're gonna put out there. So I don't always get chosen to play some of the roles. Sometimes I'm not Latino enough. Sometimes I'm too Latino. Sometimes my Spanish isn't enough. It's, I got the world trying to tell me too much what to be, that when it comes to my own career, I'm gonna make that decision. But you know, I think I always try to put out a good representation. I always try to like further the needle, you know, in some ways, or show what we're capable of, which sounds so crazy, this, you know, to even say. It's just such a, I feel like the viewpoint of Hollywood, if we can even still call it that, even though it's so decentralized now, it's such an archaic way that we're still viewing ourselves because of it. And the way we see ourselves as this monolith, which in many ways I love. I love that I can walk into a room and I can have, you know, Salvadoreños or Nicaraguenses, you know, all different people, and we, you know, hey, we're together and we're brothers. You know, I love that connection. But we're not the same. We're different. And there's so many things and intricacies that there's so much that brings us together. There's so much when it comes to, you know, family, cultura, comida, everything. But we're different. And when we don't even see it sometimes, you know, we know it, I think, but we're kind of forced into this group that we're happy to be in, you know, we're happy to celebrate each other because we get it, and, you know, but at the same time, there's so much more there to be mined, you know, and the Latino representation of us for so long was this European, like Spanish, you know, they call Antonio Banderas Latino, you know. Spaniard, he's, you know, white European, like, it's not just because they speak Spanish, but it's something that's all we had, you know, or thought, you know, and we're latching onto. But, you know, there's a shit ton of other actors that I got to know once, you know, I got to LA that have been there from the beginning, you know, and a lot of your contemporaries, a lot of people that I was very fortunate to work with, you know, because of Resurrection Boulevard, that are all people that they all came up together, you know, like you guys were doing Zoot Suit on Broadway and the film, and but there's just, I'm interested in that next. I'm interested in that next step of seeing almost back to the way the world really is, and less of this hermeneutic that's kind of been formed by what Hollywood's done, or what people are interested in seeing from somebody. So to me, look, we've come a long way, and there's a lot more representation, but I feel like there's this other place to go that we haven't really. Although I'm with more film and the ability for people, you know, with independent film, and we can, you know, shoot it all on the phone, we're seeing more of those films, you know, we're seeing the diversity, the true diversity within our diversity, you know, and that's the problem, is, you know, we're used as a sprinkling, you know, to give the flavor, because, oh, this gives you a little bit of an idea of, we know what Latinos are like, so we're gonna put that in there, and you already know what you're getting, and we're gonna put in black guy with, you know, really quick, you know, rejoinders, and it just becomes, it's like a pantomime of a world that doesn't really exist, and we're all acting like it does.
Thank you so much. You bring up a lot of interesting points. John, moving on to John. I want to know, what's your perspective as a filmmaker? You know, what's the filmmaking perspective behind this? Have you personally been encouraged to change your vision, or maybe to teach certain types of films that are more, I guess, legible to a general audience? What does Latino representation in TV and film mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think my perspective as a filmmaker is more of like independent, like, not mainstream and, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, I think, to make your, characters either cliche or, transmutable or like you can take a black character and replace it with a Latino character, replace it with an Asian character kind of thing, or a white character even, searching for that universality. But I do remember like so I made Manzanal here and it went on and did really well in a lot of Latino film festivals. Um, and as part of that, in one of them, there was like this special like visit that we got to do where me and a few other Latino filmmakers who were like independent coming up, were invited to like speak to some executives, pitch our ideas in like kind of like a round table thing. I remember we were in a round table with a Latin Hispanic identifying executive at like a major distribution company. And we were all pitching our ideas and everybody had like different ideas, like a Latinx space hurt like film or like, a surfer who trips hard on like psychedelic drugs and like time travels or whatever. Like and I had one, I was like, I was really nervous. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, well, I had this like series idea of like a generational family of boxers who were split by the border, and one family doesn't know the other family like exists. And the
They come against each other in the championship.
yeah, they see the ring. I thought it was a cool idea. It's called Mata Americanos. I have the pitch deck. And the person stopped me. So I'm gonna stop you right there. Border narratives, immigration. We kind of want to move past that. We're more than like our stories are more than immigration stories. We're trying to look for something that's more like universal. And like I was like really like I was new, obviously, like months and out. I'm still in grad school. I was like kind of like it kind of shut me up a little bit and it made me really self-conscious. And I remember like after that, like really thinking it through, talking to my partner about it, and like was like that person was wrong. Like that's not true. And it goes with what both panelists are saying. Like I was like, no, like there's no way that we by seeing like maybe 100 immigrant narratives that we've seen enough to understand immigration or what the immigrant experience is like. Because I'm seeing the world still not understand who we are, and still not view us as human, and still not see us as complex people with our differences and our nuances. I'm like there are over 20 million Latina, Hispanic identifying immigrants in this country. Like, there's no way that like a couple of narratives that are all about crossing through Tijuana are gonna like satisfy the entire breadth of the differences in between them. And on top of that, I was just like, at that shortly after that, I made No Soy Oscar, which is a fully immigrant like film. And I was like, I'm not gonna let this person say that we've had enough of these. Like, I will know when we've had enough of them, when I see like my like Latinidad, Salvadoran, Mexican diaspora, like put on screen. Maybe then I'll say, maybe we've had enough of that one. But there's so many, as Nicholas was saying, like there's so many that are from all different places, all different walks of life, all different experiences. And when this question of like representation comes up for me, like I do think that representation is good. And I know that the work like Dr. Ramon is doing is so valuable because we need to see this stats, we need to see the data. And I think representation is good, but in this case, representation didn't really serve me, right? And the problem with representation only is that it doesn't solve the problem, right? And sometimes it makes it worse because it makes people think we've solved it. We have a representative from this community running things. That means it's good. But that representative doesn't have like the wide berth of knowledge. So for me, like representation is
Or even carte blanche.
yeah, exactly. And for me,
having to
yeah, and
justify getting it.
exactly, yes, exactly. And for me, representation super valuable, really important. But I don't think the fight is over until we reach equity, right? And I think that when I hear box offices like sales are being like almost 25% of them are going to Latino, Latine, Hispanic identifying ticket buyers. I'm saying, well, I won't really be satisfied until at least 25% of the films coming out in the theaters are Latine, Hispanic identifying stories written by Latine, Hispanic identifying people. Like, for me, it's representation is a nice step, but until those major companies are staffed by 25% Latine like workers, like until those movies that come out are 25% Latina movies, like I don't think we've reached the place where we can say like representation has served us, right? Like it's equity that I'm like fighting for, like, but representation is fine for now.
But at the same time, what you're saying is so important because where do we get our opinions on people? You know, is great. We don't get it at school. We don't because we learn something new, maybe in a class, unless someone's getting up and really, you know, I don't know if it's like, no, we don't necessarily get that in school. Where we're getting it is off the screen. That's where we're learning. That's where people's minds are opening. That's where we see the intimate
Yeah.
details of behind, not the story that media wants to show you or that people are comfortable of showing in public, but what is this person, what's their experience? Underneath all this, what are they really going through? The human experience. It's the one that's what we're all together, and yet we're just being shown this kind of thing in the beginning, but not being able to see underneath and go, oh, yeah, that's my neighbor. That's the person. When I talk about us together as humankind, I'm not just talking about people in the street, I'm talking about because I genuinely have this connection, this universality with everybody. And unfortunately, it's this thing that does it, you know, who do you pay attention to with politics and stuff? You tell celebrities to shut their mouth, but it's like, this is what people are listening to, you know? I wish they were listening to more professors. I wish there was, but you know, this is where we're getting it.
Netflix just gave $1 billion for new product to Mexico. Mexico has $1 billion for new content. Not here,
Yeah.
not for Latinos here, to Mexico,
Mhm.
because it's cheaper. And they have phenomenal talent, as we all know. I studied there for many years as well. It's to Mexico because it's cheaper. So what you're hearing a lot of is that it's a business. If we can get the hit, then all of a sudden everybody copies that. But understand, within the last year, they canceled Gentefight, they canceled Vida, they canceled The Fool, they canceled the Gloria, yes, her series. They're gone because they're cost cutting, and that's what they cut first.
And I was killed twice in a row.
You were, yes?
Cost cutting on Good Doctors.
Oh, that's right.
But I
Yeah.
believe I was be asking for what
Yeah.
more money than next season.
So, and well, anyway, I'm gonna stop here because I could go into talk about the economics of the business and what's happening in Hollywood. There's no more making it. There's no more making it. There's no more top. You have to create your own center, your own pods of creativity, present it, then they'll go and they'll buy it. But you're not gonna make it. The people Spielberg, all the big filmmakers, they're all looking for their next film, getting money for their next film. So that's why there's no making. Everybody's trying to make it, and there's no making it. That's why you create your own group, your own creative pod, your own film. And how you do that, you talked about the cell phone, verticals, but the point is, yeah, there's no making it. There's no top postmodern world.
Thank you. And that actually translates to the last question that I do have for Dr. Ramon on Zoom. Can you provide an explanation about why we see so few stories that cover Latin American stories and experiences? What needs to change? Studio leadership? Is it funding? Support from the community? What do you think?
Yeah, Dr. Ramon.
Well, yeah, if I had a and then I would probably be really rich or something, right? But I mean, definitely the answers are in like kind of the responses that we've already heard in terms of studio leadership, right? So it can start now, change. It doesn't have to be where you wait for a person that's a certain race or ethnicity to finally be like the head of the studio, which would be great to finally have maybe a BIPOC, head of studio. But the one thing is change can start now, right? And so so it's the key of like empowering people at all levels of a studio, which they're all right now really corporatized, right? And so in order to see like the change that we need, what we need is more BIPOC people, but like not just like what was said earlier. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want the same things that a creative wants, but you just need so many different diverse perspectives and have people all in the room that really understand the importance about speaking up, right? And have the power to do so. And so like oftentimes the like heads of departments, they'll make a big splash saying that they did hire a BIPOC, executive, but then if they're all by themselves and they're surrounded by people that are not supportive or they don't have like the power to make, green lighting decisions, then there's not going to really you're not going to really see change, right, or progress. And so you need people to feel empowered at every level of a studio, of a part of that corporate business, in order to embrace it. And like the only way that change starts is from the top, when the message is clear that diversity and equity and inclusion, which have been demonized as DEI and like kind of distorted, in recent times. But the idea of it, if you actually put it as part of the mission and as something that is important to that company and to that studio and that needs to be embraced at all levels, then that's the only way you're going to see the change, right? And one thing when I have met with executives, like I've been at a major streaming company talking to like their huge development team for television series. And when you're in a room with them, you see that how difficult it is to get something made that really is authentic when the executives themselves have very specific experiences. And so if they are not Latinx, especially like for our stories, then they are also influenced by what the media tells them. And oftentimes, and this is even through the years beyond that one room experience that I had, you can see that a lot of times executives just see Latinx audiences and Latinx stories as foreign, right, as the other, and not clearly understanding that there is this experience in the U.S., even, obviously if it's an immigrant experience, but for the millions of people that are also born here and that are Latinx. And so there's like this lack of understanding, and it could be from even young executives that I found, because the like one question I got was from this one executive that she was just thinking that I was talking about how young people, especially Latinx and African American teens, how often they used YouTube and how often they used Instagram to tell their own stories. And so I presented that, and she asked me this question because she thought like, well, are they just got here though? Like how, she thought that all these Latinx teens had just immigrated or something, or that there was like this large percentage. And I had to explain that, about 68% of the Latino Latinx population is actually born in the US. And I also explained that 8 out of 10 of the Latinx population in the US is under 35, and under 35 is born here, and that 9 out of 10 are under 18 are born here. So it's like the talking about the generations, the younger generations are born here. And so there's this lack of understanding, and obviously like they live in families that have immigrants and so forth, but it's like this lack of understanding of what the population is, right? And like when Nick was saying, we're not a monolith, but it's like there are definitely certain experiences that we have. And so So oftentimes studios will just think though, like if we just create more Spanish speaking series, then that should satisfy this audience, or, we invest in all these other stories outside of the US, but people that are in the US really want to see their stories here. They want to see the stories that they live, even, whatever it is, like whether they are immigrants or not, they are having experiences in the US. And obviously, there, right now are not enough shows, TV shows that we're seeing, not enough films that are really portraying our vast array of experiences, right? And so I think that the only way for that to change, obviously, is to really have people that understand the Latinx audience better, that are working in the studios.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you guys for sharing, obviously, your stories, but also for sharing this knowledge and your guys' perceptions on these different questions. I do want to transition over because I do want to get some audience perceptions or any questions that you guys might have. So we're going to open up the floor for any questions. I think we have time for maybe a few. Any burning questions you guys want to ask our amazing panelists?
Anything you like, anything.
Don't be shy now. Yes, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Juliana. I'm originally from Brazil. Moved here for college. So thank you so much for being here and sharing a little bit of your experience as part of like the Latino community. But I was wondering, as Nicholas specifically shared about how many times Latinos are put just like in a melting pot of all the same. And as Brazilian, we always see ourselves as something outside, even though we are still Latin America, just because of the language.
It's
So-
Spanish all in your tongue. Not bad.
The funny that Spanish is my first language. Yeah, anyway, I was just curious on how you see that like we can create change on like not only on representation, but like for the audience itself, having those shifts of understanding how like not every country in Latin America is the same, and how like Latinos are not all the same, like how we can start making that sort of progress.
You have to stop being so spicy. That is a really good question.
In a sense, you're already getting it, because what's happening is the Hollywood industry has collapsed. Everything is going out of California and out of the country. 30% more you add to a budget if you shoot in California because of unions, it's gone. And then with the fires in Altadena, a lot of people in the film industry, production is, and that's why they canceled a lot. So what they're doing now is, and I've done voiceovers for a Brazilian soap opera. I've done voiceovers for a Mexican, because they're buying product from the outside, dubbing it and putting it on the streaming services.
That's why they're pushing so many of the foreign, like,
Yes.
all the BBC series and everything
Yeah.
else because they didn't do any of that development. The past 2 years, we've been sitting on our hands.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying the industry has been with the Hollywood, it's not there anymore. Yes, we won the strike. Yes, we got better salaries, but everyone left.
They took everything.
They took everything away.
Like what would normally be a series regular is a recurring, and what would normally have been a recurring character, which would have been in a number of times, is now a guest star. And, and they'll just have him guest a few times. It's all about giving you less money.
Yeah, less money for the actors, less residuals. And so that's the reality of what's going on. So yeah, there is a lot of Latin, but it's not being produced here. And it goes back to the Latin stories that we have. It's not happening. So independent films, small films, that's a whole other topic. How you create your own films and how you market them and who you market it to. There's a lot of people doing projects. And there was a variety. They made a film, or New LA Times, $7,000 they made a film. They rented their own theater and they sold their own tickets. Blair Witch Project, they made it $35,000 back in the day, made 48 million, now it's 400 and something.
Robert
80 million.
Rodriguez's El Mariachi was $7,000. And the
$7,000.
industry didn't, even know anything about it, didn't know they wanted it until they finally showed them something.
If you want to watch something interesting, look at Roberto Rodriguez, the director, 10-minute film school. He has it. Have you guys, anybody seen that? His 10-minute film school. Minute 1, don't go to film school. Get a business card that says director, get your friends, any camera, go to your friend's house, borrow their
Do with
car.
what you have.
Yeah.
Anything you have, create your story around that. What you-
Roberto Rodriguez felt, but my point is that that's what we're doing. There's no top anymore. There's no making it. They're not here. Actors, there's no work. We used to have pilot season where we had pilots gone. Now they have algorithm.
Team, and normally it was 13 at each network or channel,
Yep.
all these different, there's 13s here.
Totally.
And CBS did 0.
Because what they're doing is the algorithm of the stream. It's all about stream. So the algorithm tells you what people are watching, what actors are popular, what shows, what kind of things they want to see. It's all like, so there's no pilot season. That gave us a shot at having a series. So it's just all changed. So how do you get around it? There's a lot, see, that's what I mean. This is where you come in. Because we're still graduating creatives. We're still graduating people who are interested in media and representations. You got to come up with the solutions. Because you're not going to be sitting on your hands. You're not. Because I have full faith in you. A friend of mine now is doing verticals. Films made specifically for cell phones, not horizontal, like for podcasts, vertical. So you guys are coming up with all this stuff, but there is no making it anymore, going to the top in Hollywood. Let that go. You create your own synergy. Look what you have here, right here, this guy. By the way, you're amazing. Your perspectives in your film is just really amazing. Do you see what I mean? And that's about connecting, like you were saying, with other, like the other people, creatives. You got to create your own studio, your own creative pod. You have to. And this is the perfect place to do it. You know, Spielberg for many years, my friend Latina was a script supervisor for many years. He was still working with people he went to film school with. Do you see what I mean? The relationships you make now, especially here, congratulations, by the way, being at Stanford. But you got to get out and network and talk. Don't wait till you're a junior or senior to get the coraje. No, start as a freshman. Take advantage of everything. Hit the ground running. Become a leader. Make that film. Get that idea out. Now, don't wait till you're a senior. Anyway, I'm going to stop now.
Do we have another question? I saw a hand up on the back.
Yes, so I have a question from our Zoom audience. So Rosana is asking, as some of you have hinted at, getting an education is powerful and transformative. What responsibility do predominantly white institutions like Stanford have in making predominantly white artistic departments like theater accessible to Latinx who haven't been afforded the opportunity to create theater?
I had dinner with Harry Elam last night. He was my dissertation advisor. Love Harry. And the reason I saw Nick is because Harry accepted me in the drama department. I was doing Chicano Latino. I was with Teatro Campesino. So he liked all my work. And I was there because Harry brought me in. And if you don't know him, he's African American. He's the preeminent August Wilson scholar in the country. He was also the provost here, under provost. That's why I saw him. And Irma Mayorga was my colleague who directed him, but he did it because he brought us in. So what do they need to do? It starts with the professors, especially first gen people, someone they can relate to and talk to who understands their cultural background. That's what they need to do. We can't just follow one set of systemic repeating the same information to the same predominantly white scholarship and canon, American theater canon in my case. So Harry, by the way, I told him the story and he just like was just really just, I told him what he did. Because of him, me, and then you, and you have such a beautiful career and family. Harry, Dr. Elam.
And Waldo Long asked a question. Wow. Good to see you. I'm wondering if you can speak to any synergies or any plans that there might be out there to bring different artistic domains together. So for example, I'm thinking of the music industry. I imagine that if we were holding a panel with folks in the music industry, that we might hear similar themes, perhaps. First of all, I wonder if you agree. And secondly, are there any kind of efforts in your respective industries to join forces to just advance the cause and advance the efforts that you all are trying to endeavor to do. Does that make sense?
The question is, is there synergy out there between, I mean, I think so. I will say that, I've thought a lot about this. One of the things that like, I want to say, based on what we were talking about is, despite the ongoing need for representation in the film industry, one thing that has remained clear within my own perspective, and I'd love to hear from my fellow panelists, if it's true for them too, is every film that I've made ever since my undergrad thesis, Sombras, that did all the things that I mentioned earlier, the Manzanal no Soy Oscar, like the Latine community was always there. Like they always show up. They're always there at the film festivals. They're always there supporting films. I never have felt like want or need of like the Latinx community. Like they're always there. They're hugging me. They're crying after the films. We talk. We commune. I've never felt alone. And this is the reason why I've stayed making these films, and I'm sure this is shared between my colleagues. But what I feel is missing is everybody else. You know, we hear people complain about the current administration, the current political system, immigration reform, lack of it, ICE, all these things. But I think the first step is for people outside of the Latino community, to start taking an interest in our stories, start taking an interest in our objectives, to start taking an interest in our perspective. Without that, we're going to continually have a system or a situation in this country specifically where people don't know who we are and don't understand who we are and have like no capacity to care for us as human beings. So I think the main thing that I would think, in order to create the synergy, like people, we have to have buy-in from other community members. And at the same time, I'm not giving us a pass either. We need to be better about going to other communities and participating in their cinema and in their art and in their work. Because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like ancestral unity flows through us. You know, we are connected, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not. And so for synergy to happen, we have to also take an interest in other communities and participate in their art. And we need buy-in from other communities and ours as well. And then we'll start to see like real human portrayals of who we are and what we are and what we come to do. And you know, I think that's ultimately like that's the biggest ask that we have.
Stupid question.
And then we're gonna take one more question. We want to value you guys' time, but.
Hi, yo soy Carol. I'm from East LA. And when I first applied to college, I applied as a for filmmaking and for journalism. Once I was in Tuesday and Northwestern, y dije, ya, pues Stanford no me quiere. So for me, I grew up, I was raised by a single mom. First generation, really good. The only thing I've seen is film. And in high school, I used to do documentaries on intergenerational trauma in East LA. Y dije, you know what, this is what I want to do, I guess. I'm going to go to college for that. And then, well, I got accepted to Stanford, you know, well, I'm going to use my opportunities and I'm going to go there. And when I came here, there's no film, there's no journalism and there's no film making for undergraduates. And everyone here is CS, everyone here is STEM. No, they don't like STEM majors. But on this, when they're like humanities, film making, it's kind of like, you came to Stanford just to study that? Y yo decía, well, like that's the only thing that I had a passion for, and that's the moment where I was like, well, I could do that, I guess, but I'm still gonna have that craving to want to create film. And so eventually I did dive into psychology and into my other majors. For example, I'm thinking of a master's in education. But ahora digo, well, I want to go back, and how you said, like, you went back to college when you thought, you know, it was maybe a better time in your life to pursue it. And so is there any words of advice that you might have for filmmakers, especially now how you were saying, you can't make it, you know, you have to create your own, you have to be your own innovative person. And so what are some recommendations that you might have for filmmakers that can navigate from spaces where you basically start from zero?
my biggest advice, and I tell this to all my students, is even if it feels corny, even if it feels like outdated, you have to watch the films of people who were making films when there was no shot to make those films. You have to watch these films. And if you feel like, oh, like, I don't know, we don't talk like that anymore, like, that's fine, but how are you gonna write it different? Like, you watch these films because, as my dad used to say, we one trabaja doble, you know, like, if you don't do your research, if you don't educate yourself, if you don't participate in what happened already, I mean, come on, like, the almost generation, like Sandy Deliver, all these things, I know that it feels like corny to watch old films, but if you don't watch them, then you don't know what you don't have to do again, you don't have to redo. And then when you watch them and you have a critical eye, then you're thinking, well, I would do it this way. Or nowadays, we're doing this. And you add it and you adjust it and you make it your own and you find ways to tell your story. I think that that's my best advice that I can give to any.
I just have one more thing that I wanted to say. Sorry, jumping in here. But I wanted to leave this message that I like to also share with the younger generations whenever I talk to a class. Even if you don't think that a career in entertainment is for you, you are still a consumer of media, right? So every person almost, in the US consumes television and film. And so see that as like that you are an investor, right? And so as an investor, then you should receive a return on your investment. And you should see yourself reflected on the screen and through the stories that are told. So in order to feel that you have a say in that and you have power, then the way that you watch things, the tickets that you buy, but also your social media presence. And for people like that are part of, our generation and older, Gen X and generation older, we had to make a transition. But for younger people, this is very natural. So being on social media is important in terms of if each of you have a voice and you can talk about what you like and what you want to see more of on screen. And when you really like the work of a certain creative, whether it's an actor, a director, or a writer, you should talk about them because like what was being said earlier, there are algorithms, right, that kind of run a lot of things. So what you watch on streaming really affects that. It gets documented somewhere. When you talk about certain things on social media, if you look at our reports, we actually also track social media ratings. That is all pulled together. And the corporate, corporatization of Hollywood, they all look at that and they see what is most popular, what is getting the most hits, and because then they can sell ads to that, right? And so it's very important that you understand your own power, right? So even if you're not on social media, you have the power of what you watch and how it gets documented and tracked. And this is something that, you want it for the good, right? And for a future to see things that you like, then that's how you are part of the process, right? So see yourself as a powerful investor and hopefully then progress will happen and change will happen.
Thank you so much to our amazing panelists again, Alma and John, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. And Dr. Ramon, again, if you can join me and thanking them. And thank you for all you guys for coming out today. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we just get another round of applause for our amazing? In our newest tradition that we've done with the generaciones, what we'd like to do after each of our panel discussions is if we gather everybody in the room together and do one big group photo with our wonderful panelists. and everybody here together, and our amazing photographer Angelica will take that photo. Can we just do that and then we'll respect everybody's time and everybody's, can please move along their way. So thank you. We can, I think, just gather up here and we'll look to, Angelica, can you position us where you'd like us to go?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
How is it normally done? There you
Like Monday.
You can just Photoshop me.
Yeah, I'm going right now. They should not throw one silly.
I think the first guy to you're not logging in. Understand that.
You got to like, yeah, fill up this, you can use this for defense.
It's fine. He doesn't have to go. No, you're not logging anything.
I'll help you up.
Okay. Sorry, Zoom. Oh wait, never mind. I'm not gonna move Zoom. Okay. We're gonna need some people to come over here or screen.
We're waiting.
Sorry, can you come on this side once, please?
I know.
You're doing us a squeeze, like we're squeezing. If you guys can, maybe move more like to the side. I don't think this. Petals right in the middle. Can you see them? Can do that? Can we move a little bit? There you go, there you go.
Just bring our panelists right
To the center.
Just if we can flank out just a little bit, so we can see.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're back, Nosora.
Oh, this is really nice. I'm gonna take a few, someone flash, someone not. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Yes, thank you, thank you.
Hey, Chicago.
Hey, Chicago is the best city in the world. Okay, we'll flash. Hold on. You can come on. Thank you, keep holding it. Thank you. Okay, that's good, that's good.
Oh my God, thank you everybody for being part of this amazing experience.
Dr. Ramon, close it out here.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Bye.